have always been very connected to the country and animals and being in nature. But I think it's the calmness and the connection and the sense of purpose that has really changed my life.
This is The Producers. I'm Anthony Huckstep. With farming roots that go back many generations, Greg Cromwell is carrying on the tradition in the Byron Bay Hinterland with his wife and daughters. It is here where they are using regenerative practices to pasture-raise rare heritage breeds of animals.
We're farming in Gooningary, which is in northern New South Wales. We're about 20 minutes from Lismore and about 30 minutes to Byron Bay. The region, I mean, when you look back historically with the farming that was going on here 100 years ago, it was a perfect place for dairy cattle, and before that it was a perfect place for subtropical rainforest, which, hewers of wood, drawers of water came in and took a lot of the wood out and cleared some paddocks, and with the rainfall and no frost in most areas, perfect for growing grass and for dairy cattle, which was the strength of this area from a farming point of view. We started out very small. Originally, we had the basics. We'd done chooks before, and we then sort of branched out and decided we wanted to get a few cows, and we started out as 3-girl Dexter stud. I did a bit of research on cattle and things that would be suitable for us starting off. We had 3 young daughters at the time, and I guess the start was when we bought our first cows. We got 3 Dexter cattle from out the other side of Toowoomba, and 3-girl Dexter stud was born, and we started to show our cows, and then branched out and borrowed a bull, and then ended up getting our own bull, and over 15 years later, I guess it'd be approximately, we're running a herd of about 30 Dexters now.
A 7th generation farmer, Greg grew up with the rich experiences of the family farm in Canada.
Probably my earliest food memory that sticks with me was my grandfather. We have a farm in Canada, in Chatham, that goes back 7 generations, 1853. And I grew up, spent a lot of time on the farm. And I remember my grandpa taking him to a little garden he had beside the barn, and pulling up some radishes and tomatoes, and then tasting those. And then probably the other food memory was when I was working for Pioneer Seed on the farm with my sister, detasseling corn when I was about 13. I remember sort of quick lunch break and seeing that there was some cantaloupes or muskmelons, as they can be called, growing in a field, and taking some of those and cutting them open, and just amazing how delicious and fresh they tasted right from the field. I mean, I was sort of part of it through my grandpa and the farm and that area there, spending time there as a young person, and neighbor kids were farmers and helped them in the paddocks picking tomatoes and cucumbers, and I always just remember going to local farms and getting fresh sweet corn, and that was probably the early memories.
After a string of outs in search of a career, Greg found purpose on the farm.
I had a history of getting fired a bit. I got fired from the first brewery I worked at after helping them take them public. And then as I walked out the door, I went, I think I'm going to start another brewery, which I ended up doing, and 2 other guys that got fired from the same brewery, and that was 3 fired guys and steam whistle, and that went well, and I kind of got semi-retrenched when I was working in advertising, and just decided to take a year off, and we moved up to our cabin, and I had two very young girls at that point in time, and just started living in 100 acres off the grid, and got ourselves some chooks, and that was kind of, I guess, the start of moving into farming. We very close to a family where we have our cabin, and they've got a farm with cattle and hay and do various things. So yeah, we helped around there, helped them with farming. I did some hay raking and worked cattle shows, and yeah, that sort of got us into it. And we were going to go back to the city, but we decided we'd come to Australia for a year, which I guess I'm going to have to do a backstory on how I ended up in Australia. I married an Australian from Toronto who I met in Toronto, Canada, but it was Toronto on Lake Macquarie that my wife Alison was from.
Even with the farming pedigree, Greg soon realised that farming throws up the oddest experiences.
There's so many stories, and I wouldn't call them favorites. A lot of them have been pretty stressful. When we picked up our first cattle and we had them in the horse flow, one was a pretty young calf, and so we had two cows and a young calf. And I remember let's just pull over and check how they're going. And yeah, the calf was definitely sort of stressing out from what we could tell, and ended up having the calf drive from Toowoomba to Goonagiri in the back seat with our girls. Didn't stop us from pulling over to get a good feed, and they just ate back there with the little calf. Condoleezza, I believe, is her name. We still have her.
As Greg explains, the joy of farming is that there is no typical day.
The great thing about farming is there's usually nothing too typical about it. You wake up every day and have a juice, have a coffee. For me, being from Canada and having businesses over there, it's usually I'm on the computer and phone, just getting up to date with things, checking weather, and get the old day timer out and start doing up some lists. Usually sort of a six o'clock kickoff on the digital tools, and then I'll go out and start doing stuff, checking the farm with the dogs. Yeah, usually around 9 o'clock or so. Having nature as your boss is good. Not necessarily the easiest boss sometimes, especially in this region. People wonder why people stay here with fires and floods and all the things that seem to unfortunately be going on and more common. I guess it's just the challenge and the connection of it, being connected to the food and to your land, and and being able to, there's just so much noise in our digital connected world now. It's just nice to be able to pretty much unplug and do stuff that my great-grandparents would have been doing.
Farming is one thing, but the challenge of finding a market has proved the most challenging.
Initially we were pretty focused on the cattle, and we were milking for a long time, so pretty sustainable from that point of view. Allison taking some cheese courses, and so we were making our own butter and soft cheeses, and had fresh milk in the fridge that we'd milk by hand, and eventually got an automated milker, and that was been a pretty big part at the beginning, and we've haven't been doing that for a while, but it is on my milk bucket list to get back and start milking again. But I think stuff that we actually bring in money for. Money goes out pretty fast, but what we are bringing some money in for, it's not the easiest thing to actually sell things. It's easy to go, I'm going to have a farm and grow things and have animals, but actually figuring out how to bring in the bacon. Probably our biggest thing has been originally was the cattle, and selling them to other breeders. And then also then we started to sell the extra meat we had to restaurants. And then once we got into pigs, they probably started to take over a little bit, just with the faster cycle, and not as onerous in terms of getting them from paddock to plate. So probably the pigs are what we've become known for the most. But the cattle are probably from a grazing and from the amount of livestock we have are the biggest part of the farm right now.
Greg believes farming heritage breeds offers the opportunity to raise fascinating animals that also deliver a unique eating experience.
I've got a bit of a marketing sales background, so really we started selling the product before we even started raising them. It's very easy to raise and grow out animals and to grow produce, but actually to find someone who will buy it and pay a reasonable price for it. So we've gone, very niche with the heritage breeds. We weren't going to start off with trying to compete with other Angus breeders or Hereford or things like that. I mean, those are good solid European breeds, but I wanted to do something that was a bit different. And being on a steeper block and smaller farm, read up on the Dexters and with their dual purpose, it just made like a perfect animal for selling to other producers starting out, and also for restaurants. Just a story. People are interested in the different breeds and what the taste and quality of the meat is like.
With the success of the first farm, Greg is now broadening his horizons.
We've kind of outgrown our 40-acre farm here in Byron and Goongarry, and we've gone and bought another farm in the Clarence Valley, which is very similar in a lot of ways to this property and similar to our farm back in Canada. It's been a family farm for well over 100 years, original farmhouses and original sheds and buildings, and still actually a farm. So pretty excited about having some flat land in the Clarence Valley on the Glenougie Creek, and less suicide slashing. Trying to maintain paddocks in the hilly Byron Shire can be very harrowing. So we're excited about bringing that farm back into production and keeping going what we have here and having the two properties working together. So we can maintain the size of herds we have now and continue our breeding, but have the benefit of two properties and two regions to produce from.
The move back to the farm has not only changed Greg's life, but enriched the lives of his daughters too.
Have always been very connected to the country and animals and being in nature, probably my happy place. And have grew up in the city and still really do enjoy city life. But I think it's the calmness and the connection and the sense of purpose that has really changed my life. It's different every day. That when I want to throw in the towel and go, why am I doing this? Usually about half an hour later, something will happen, an interaction with an animal, or go out and seeing a nice crop of citrus to pick, or get a call from someone who is interested in using our produce. It doesn't take long to lift me. My mom told me that my great-grandpa said to her one day, they were walking around their farm, as long as you have this farm, you'll have a roof over your head and food on the table, and what's more important than that?
For Greg, Cromwell Farms is much more than finding his inner peace and connecting with the land. It's about family, the generations before him and the generations to come. This is The Producers, a Deep in the Weeds production. I'm Anthony Huckstep. Stay tuned as we share the stories of producers, farmers, makers, and growers, the true lifeblood of the food industry. Follow us on Instagram at Producers Podcast or email us at producerspodcast@deepintheweeds.com.au.